welcome to our last meeting from the Hobbit. Read, enjoy, and learn. We are gathering for the last time to read the last two chapters of the Hobbit. But before reading that, we're going to, of course, go into the summaries of the last two chapters that we read last week. Those were chapter 16 and 17. Then we're gonna do a little Kahoot. Let me fix this because I can't stand the sound. Okay. All right. So as usual, welcome. Now we're gonna first read the summaries of chapters 16 and 17. Then we're gonna have a little Kahoot. It's shorter than usual, but I try to add some questions that maybe chat won't be able to get right. Maybe, it's my hope, but we'll see.
Are they in Spanish?
No, this English, or as Scott would say, English class. It's not a class, but it looks like, I realize it looks like a class, but it's not a class. Okay. Repeat after me.
What is it?
It's not a class.
What is it then?
What is it? Who?
What is it? If it's like
it's a party. It's a party.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
Of course. We are starting with Hobby. It's our nerdy kind of party, reading and stuff. All right. Let me share my screen. Hi, Fair. Hector, Chad, everybody. Oh, Rennie is also here. Welcome. Come on, come in. You see, like Bill. We're gonna start with our summary. There's something funny about today's summary. It is that we usually get the summaries from the Oxford Center for Fantasy. And this time, the summary of chapter 16 is super short, and the summary for chapter 17 is super long. So, well, it's what we have. So we're gonna use it. Anyways, I'm gonna need volunteers because how would we call them if this is a party? Volunteer sounds like a class, and this is not a class.
Can I go?
Yeah. Omar, is that you?
Yes.
All right, great. You're signing up for the short one. So let's start at least reading the title of the chapter because it's very short. Is the size okay? Because I usually make it bigger.
Chapter 16, A Thief in the Night. For the Arkenstone of my father, he say, is worth more than a river of gold in itself, and to me it is beyond price. This is a chapter in which Bilbo must make the very hard decision of whether or not to bring the Arkenstone to Bar and the Elven King. I really love this chapter because it really shows how brave Bilbo is and how much he would give up in order to save his friends and many more lives.
Thanks, that was it. And even with the person's opinion on the chapter, that's what I call a brief summary. This is not the Silma. This is the Arkenstone. Okay, and then we have
same difference.
17. Oh yeah, we can discuss it later now. Another summary. Who wants to read it? Fair.
Sure. Okay. This chapter deals with the topic of war. The clouds have burst, and in spite of Bilbo's heroic efforts to avoid bloodshed, a new and totally unexpected conflict breaks out. The chapter begins with Thorin's discovery of Bilbo's theft of the Arkstone. Bard, the Elven King, and an old cloaked man carrying a strongbox meet Thorin and his 12 companions at the gate of the Lonely Mountain to ask the dwarfs if they will give up a portion of their enormous treasure. When the dwarfs refuse, Bar shows them the Arkstone, and Bilbo reveals that he gave the gem to Bard. Consumed by greed, Thorin flies into a rage, and after insulting Bilbo and cursing Gandalf, he picks Bilbo up and is about to throw the Hobbit to the rocks when the old cloaked man reveals himself as Gandalf and stops him. Bilbo explains that he chose the gem as his 14th share of the treasure in return for his services as a burglar, but has now given up his share to Bard. Blinded by his lust for gold, Thorin interprets Bilbo's generous deed as an act of treachery and calls the Hobbit a traitor. The dwarves reluctantly agree to give up a 14th share of the treasure in return for the Arkstone, and a new meeting is arranged for the following day. Unfortunately for the Lake Men and the elves, Thorin's cousin Dane arrives the very next day with an army of 500 dwarfs, and instead of the promised gold and silver, Bard messengers are greeted at the gate by a hail of arrows. War seems inevitable when suddenly the skies darken and Gandalf appears with the terrible news that an enormous army of wolf-riding goblins, led by Bolg, son of Azoth, accompanied by a multitude of wargs and vampire bats, is on its way. Taken by surprise, the three armies of elves, men, and dwarfs fight against the two armies of goblins and wargs, and the battle of the 5 armies. The 3 armies fight heroically, but they are overwhelmed by the goblin army on the mountain slopes and by the warg army, bolstered by the bodyworks of Bolg in the valley. In the meantime, Bilbo has put on his ring of invisibility and looks on in misery as the end drags near. He reflects that in songs, defeat, which often entails dying heroically on the battlefield, is described as glorious, but it is actually distressing and uncomfortable. As the goblin army is about to win the gate, Bilbo's eyes, attracted by a red gleam of sunset, glance up at the sky and see a vast host of eagles arriving in the distance. He joyfully yells, "The eagles are incoming!" and the elves take out the cry. Suddenly, a stone hits Bilbo on the head, which causes him to lose consciousness, and this chapter comes to an abrupt end. I enjoy reading these fast-paced action-packed.
Okay, that's enough. That was the summary, and then the summarizer's opinion. It was a rather long summary, but I think it was great. Good, very detailed. All right. Now let's go for our Kahoot. I'm going to copy. Come over here. Good, HD and chat. Nan is Fernando. No.
Is Norway allá con Arwalderon.
Ay, Nan. I can't deal with you and your names. I like the flowers, Fernando. Omar, yeah.
Could you share the link, please?
Yeah, sure. Coming from the phone?
Yes.
Yeah, come. Renny, you coming? Rose! Hi. Norway. I will call you Norway. I love it. Christus is a baby. Okay, Omar is here. Oh my God, I think this is the most people we've ever had. Because Rose, can you make it? All right. Yeah, we'll wait for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So excited. Getting sick of the music though. So this time I've had some other more general questions because we're ending the book. And most of you are experts in the field already. So I really didn't have any ideas until 5 or 6 this afternoon. But an inspired mind helped me. That would be Fernando. But he doesn't know the questions. Just so you know. You can also speak because this is not a class. And you can, and even if it were a class, you should speak. See, so I don't feel so low. Yeah. Okay, let's start. The Hobbit. Well, this is our final cut. There, I'm back again. First question. On September 21st, The Hobbit was first published. But how old is it? How old is the book? This is an easy one. Kind of, fairly. Is it 86? It's been a long time. Is it 50 like Bilbo? 89, like really old? Or 111 years old, maybe. What say you? I see Chad like, come on. Just wait. Rennie, did you come? Yeah, you're here. It's 86 people. Oh, gotcha. Well, the 9 and the 6 can be, similar, so it's 86. It was in 1937, so 7 plus 6, that makes 3. That's 86. You must not forget. All right, let's see. Oh, Chad, you're winning. Congrats. Okay, next. I was reading the letters. So in 1973, Tolkien was happy. He was pleased to learn that The Hobbit was being translated into what language? Swedish, Finnish, Icelandic, Polish. How about this one? Maybe a little challenge? No? No idea. I made sure to look at the last letters because we're reading the first letters up to half to 100. And the correct answer was Icelandic. Okay. So I just looked it up on the letters and I found it. I thought it could be something that nobody knew. Icelandic, it's a language. And Tolkien was pleased to learn that the Hobbit was going to be translated into that. And he also said something like it was going to be understood in that language. So that's a nice thing, Tolkien language. Chad didn't get it right, but nobody did, so he's still first. Still luck. Nobody guessed Icelandic, not even guessing. All right, next question. How well do you know dwarves? So which one is correct? Fili and Kili are Thorin's nephews. Nori and Dwalin are brothers. Oin and Gloin are Balin's nephews. Or Bifur and Bofur are brothers. I don't even know the names of all the dwarves. I can't remember them all.
This is good timing because I was just in the process of trying to memorize which one in the movies is which name. Like I know all the names and I know what they are in the books and what they're like in the books, but in the movies they got all these faces on screen and I was trying to learn which one is which one. So this is good timing for me.
So
I really better not get it wrong.
Oh, look at this. Most of you got it right. Was it too easy then? I just remember Fili and Kili too.
Fili and Kili are the children of Thorin's sister Dis.
Yeah. I got it from here, which is a page that I love.
There you go.
It always gives me great info and very well shown, like not on an Excel worksheet. Well,
and now you must convert that to Tengwar.
I must not, but I'm sure you have an urge to do that.
I do. I won't even say anything.
So this is Fili and Kili, and this is their mom, who was Thorin's sister. And Oin and Gloin are here, and Balin and Dwalin are here, and I put Bofur and Bifur as brothers, but they weren't. Bofur and Bombur were brothers, and Bifur was their cousin or something. And Ori and Nori and Dori are here. I'm guessing Tolkien didn't really say much about them. Okay, here we are. Okay.
Question.
Very good. Nothing's moving. I need movement, people. True or false? Spoiler alert, because we haven't read this yet. 2 dwarves die. It's false. It's not 2. And I won't tell you how many because we're going to read it in a few moments. It's a movement. Great. Rose and Krista, my girls. Thank you. Another true or false. Spoiler alert. Bilbo talks to Galadriel while returning home. This is a picture I got from artificial intelligence. Golden-haired elf princess with a white dress. Powerful. I think it looks good. Yeah, no, there's no Galadriel here. There is in the movie, but not in the book. Alrighty. Oh, some more movement. Oh, yeah. My girls are coming along. Love it. Next question. On his way home, Bilbo doesn't go to which place? Because he goes all the way to the Lonely Mountain, but he has to come back. He doesn't go to Beorn's, near the Troll's Cave, to Merewoods, or to errands. He goes to 3 of these places. Which place he doesn't go on his way back home is the question. Is it easy? Is it juicy? Oh, mixed answers, mixed answers. He does go to Bear. I mean, yeah, he does go to Bern. He does get to near the Troll's Cave and to Elrond's, but not to Mirwood. All right. So there should be some movement. There is a movement. And Chet's first place. I think you're gonna win, but who knows? Maybe not. Rennie, you're trying. Now, we're gonna read some things, and I want you, this is like a personal challenge. This is a class of the day. Which of these is an exact phrase from The Hobbit? In the middle of an auction, the stars are in flower, his spoons disappeared, or saw the gold of the throne. There's a reason there's no space between the words, but one of these words is just exactly as it is with the space in the book. The others are not exactly like it, but there's a point I want to make here after you guys answer. Oh, most of you got it right. The phrase that is exactly in the book is in the middle of an auction. And I put it without space because last week we had, I think it was Chad and Scott only, or we had someone else reading, native speakers reading. And the most noticeable difference that I see between native speakers and non-native speakers is the flow. And what's the flow Scott and Chad and Krista have? The flow is that they connect the letters, they connect the words, because that's the difference between English and Spanish, in which we are very syllabic and we separate the words. So they won't read in the middle of an auction. They won't, because they will sound like robots. They will say in the middle of an auction, and they would say middle, and they would say auction, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the in the oven is going to be reduced and connected in the middle of an auction. And the other, it's not the stars are in flower, it's the moon. But you would read the stars are, not the stars are in flower. No, it would be a connection. The stars are in flower. The stars are in flower. And you don't even need to say it fast for it to be connected and flowy and like kind of like sung, because English is more like you're singing than you're speaking, really, more than Spanish at least. So the same, his spoons disappeared will be his spoons. His spoons disappear. His spoons, connecting the sounds that are similar. And saw the gold of the trolls, the same, saw the gold of the trolls, So we reduce the words that are not as important, and that makes our speech more natural, more English, let's say, in a way. So I saw some movement, but my girls are still there. So way to go. Okay. Let's read. That was it. There's only one correct answer, so don't think it too much. All right, then. Let's do it. Oh, the podium. Third place for Scott. Scott is back. Congratulations.
The comeback.
Doesn't he know everything? Almost as much as Chad Wormhold. Chris and Rose, my girls, are 4th and 5. Thank you, everybody. Oh my God, I didn't open the page where we read from. But okay. Let me close this. Yeah, I'm leaving. And go to my archive. And go to my favorite. And go to The Hobbit. And borrow it. And also write your name in the chat while I open it so we can decide who reads first. Thank you. Just put your names there in the chat so I can call your names. So this is 18? Yeah. Oh, it's 18. No, not 18. 17. 17? 18? 18, right? Yeah, 18. I like the end of chapter 17. He knew and knew no more. Classic. Thank you.
For what it's worth, when we teach English speakers to speak Spanish, we give them exactly the same lecture about connecting the words.
Uh-huh.
We tell them exactly the same thing because they need to connect the words in Spanish.
But it's a different way of connecting, I guess.
I don't know if it has to do with the structure of the syllables and how many syllables are open and closed. I think that's probably it. But we have to give them exactly the same lecture about connecting the words, because otherwise their Spanish sounds very choppy and unnatural that way.
Yeah. I bet.
I promise you, it's exactly the same lecture. I've done it.
Amazing. Okay, so I have Omar, Hector, Scott, and Krista. Where are the others? You're gonna read, right?
I'll just go whenever you want me to.
Sure. Okay. Gotcha. That will be chat. And then we have Reni. You gonna read? Say yes. Reni, you can't. Okay, don't worry. Be happy. Don't go. Stay with us. Fernando, why aren't you here?
You mean I can start? Sure.
No, you're gonna read. Yeah. Okay. No, it's just you didn't put you're not listening to me.
Okay. Huh?
Wait. No. You're not gonna start. You didn't put your name. Thank you, Santiago. Rose. Say yes, Rose. Rose. You there? Maybe not.
Maybe they're trying to speak but don't know they're on mute.
Unmute yourself. You can unmute yourselves, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So here's my list. And Omar, you're going to go first. Let me put this full screen and zoom in a little. I think that's good. Okay.
Okay, I start. Uh, chapter 18, The Return Journey. When Bilbo came to himself, he was literally by himself. He was lying on the flat stones of Ravenhill, and no one was near. A cloudless day, but cold, was broad above him. He was shaking, and as chill as a stone, but his head burned with fire. Now I wonder what has happened, he said to himself. At any rate, I am not yet one of the fallen heroes, but I suppose there is still time enough for that. He sat up painfully. Looking into the valley, he could see no living goblins. After a while, as his head cleared a little, he thought he could see elves moving in the rocks below. He rubbed his eye. Surely there was a camp still in the plain some distance off, and there was a coming and going about the gates. Dwarf seems to be busy removing the wall. But all was deadly still. There was no call and no echo of a song. Sorrow seemed to be in the air. Victory after all, I suppose, he said, feeling his aching head. Well, it seems a very gloomy business. Suddenly, he was aware of a man climbing up and coming towards him.
Thanks, Hector.
Hello there, he called with a shaky voice. Hello there, what's news? What boy is it that speaks among the stones? Said the man, halting and peering about him, not far from where Bilbo sat. Then Bilbo remembered his ring. Well, I'm blessed, said he. The invisibility has his drawback after all. Otherwise, I suppose I may have spent a warm and comfortable night in bed. It's me, Bilbo Baggins, companion of Thorin, he cried, hurriedly taking up the ring. It is well that I have found you, said the man, striding forward. You are needed, and we have looked for you long. You will have been numbered among the dead, who are many. If Gandalf the wizard had not said that your voice was last heard in this place, I have been sent to look here for the last time. Are you much hurt? A nasty knock on the head, I think, said Bilbo, but I have a hand and a hard skull. All the same, I feel sick, and my legs are like straws. I will carry you down to the camp in the valley, said the man, and pick him lightly up. The man was swift and sure-footed. It was not long before Bilbo was set down before a tent in Dale, and there stood Gandalf with his arm in a sling. Even the wizard had not escaped without a wound, and there were few unarmed in all the host.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, I'm next. When Gandalf saw Bilbo, he was delighted. Baggins, he exclaimed. Well, I never. Alive after all, and I am glad. I began to wonder if even your luck would see you through. A terrible business, and it nearly was disastrous. But other news can wait. Come, he said more gravely. You are called for, and leading the Hobbit, he took him within the tent. Hail, Thorin, he said as he entered. I have brought him. There indeed lay Thorin Oakenshield, wounded with many wounds, and his rent armor and notched axe were cast upon the floor. He looked up as Bilbo came beside him. Farewell, good thief, he said. I go now to the halls of waiting to sit beside my fathers until the world is renewed. Since I leave now all gold and silver, and go where it is of little worth, I wish to part in friendship from you, and I would take back my words and deeds at the gate. Bilbo knelt on one knee, filled with sorrow. Farewell, King under the mountain, he said. This is a bitter adventure, if it must end so, and not a mountain of gold can amend it. Yet I am glad that I have shared in your perils. That has been more than any Baggins deserves.
Thanks.
No,
Mr.
said Thorin, there is more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West. some courage, and some wisdom blended in measure. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. But sad or merry, I must leave it. I must leave it now. Farewell.
Thanks. Krista?
Then Bilbo turned away and he went by himself and sat alone wrapped in a blanket. And whether you believe it or not, he wept until his eyes were red and his voice was hoarse. He was a kindly little soul. Indeed, it was long before he had the heart to make a joke again. A mercy it is, he said at last to himself, that I woke up when I did. I wish Thorin were living, but I am glad that we parted in kindness. You are a fool, Bilbo Baggins, and you made a great mess of that business with the stone, and there was a battle in spite of all your efforts to buy peace and quiet. But I suppose you can hardly be blamed for that. All that had happened after he was stunned, Bilbo learned later, but it gave him more sorrow than joy, and he was now weary of his adventure. He was aching in his bones for the homeward journey. That, however, was a little delayed, so in the meantime I will tell something of events. The eagles had long had suspicion of the goblins mustering. From their watchfulness, the movements in the mountains could not be altogether hid. So they too had gathered in great numbers under the great eagle of the misty mountains, and at length, smelling battle from afar, they had come speeding down the gale in the nick of time. They it was who dislodged the goblins from the mountain slopes, casting them over precipices or driving them down, shrieking and bewildered among their foes. It was not long before they had freed the lonely mountain, and the elves and men on either side of the valley could come at last to the help of the battle below. But even with the eagles, they were still outnumbered. In that last hour, Beorn himself had appeared. No one knew how or from where. He came alone and in bear's shape, and he seemed to have grown almost to giant size in his wrath. The roar of this. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No worries. Thanks. Chad? Unmute yourself.
The roar of his voice was like drums and guns, and he tossed wolves and goblins from his path like straws and feathers. He fell upon their rear and broke like a clap of thunder through the ring. The dwarves were making a stand still about their lords upon a low, rounded hill. Then Beorn stooped and lifted up Thorin, who had fallen pierced with spears, and bore him out of the fray. Swiftly he returned, and his wrath was redoubled, so that nothing could withstand him, and no weapon seemed to bite upon him. He scattered the bodyguard and pulled down Bolg himself and crushed him. Then dismay fell on the goblins, and they fled in all directions. But weariness left their enemies with the coming of new hope, and they pursued them closely and prevented most of them from escaping where they could. They drove many of them into the running river, and such as fled south or west they hunted into the marshes about the forest river, and there the greater part of the last fugitives perished, while those that came hardly to the wood elves' realm that were there slain were drawn in to die deep in the trackless dark of Mirkwood. Songs have said that 3 parts of the goblin warriors of the north perished on that day, and the mountains had peace for many a year. Victory.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Fernando?
Okay. Victory had been assured before the fall of night, but the pursuit was still on foot when Bilbo returned on the camp, and not many were in the valley, save the more grievously wounded. "Where are the eagles?" he asked Gandalf that evening, as he lay wrapped in many warm blankets. "Some are in the hunt," said the wizard, "but most have gone back to their eyries. They would not stay here, and depart with the first light of morning. Thine has crowned their chief with gold, and sworn friendship with them forever." "I'm sorry. I should have liked to see them again," said Bilbo sleepily. "Perhaps I shall see them on the way home. I suppose I shall be going home soon." "As soon as you like," said the wizard. Actually, it was some days before Bilbo really set out. They buried Thorin deep beneath the mountain, and both laid the archstone upon his breast. "There let it lie till the mountain falls," he said. May it bring good fortune to all his folk that dwell hereafter. Upon his tomb, the Elven King then laid Orcrist, the elvish sword that had been taken from Thorin in captivity. It said in songs that it gleamed ever in the dark its foes approached, and the fortress of the dwarfs could not be taken by surprise. There now, then, son of Nine took up his abode, and he became king under the mountain. And in time, many other dwarfs gathered on his throne, and the ancient halls of the 12 companions of Thorin then remained. Fili and Kili had fallen, defending him with shield and body, for he was their mother's eldest brother. The others remained with Dane, for Dane dealt his treasure well.
Thank you. There was, of course, no longer any question of dividing the hoard in such shares as had been planned. To Balin and Dwalin and Dori and Nori and Ori and Oin and Gloin and Bifur and Bofur and Bombur, or to Bilbo. Yet a 14th share of all the silver and gold, wrought and unwrought, was given up to Bart, for Dain said, "We will honor the agreement of the dead," and he has now the Arkenstone in his keeping. Even a 14th share was wealth exceedingly great, greater than that of many mortal kings. From that treasure, Bart sent much gold to the master of Lake Town, and he rewarded his followers and friends freely. To the Elven King he gave the emeralds of Gideon, such jewels as he most loved, which Dain had restored to him. To Bilbo he said, "This treasure is as much yours as it is mine. Though old agreements cannot stand, since so many have a claim in its winning and defense. Yet even though you were willing to lay aside all your claim, I should wish that the words of Thorin, of which he repented, should not prove true, that we should give you little. I would reward you most richly of all." Santiago.
Very kind of you, said Bilbo, but really it is a relief to me. How on earth should I have got all the treasure home without war and murder all along the way? And I don't know, what I should have done with it when I got home. I'm sure it is better in your hands. In the end, he would only take two small chests, one filled with silver and the other with gold, such as one strong pony could carry. That will be quite as much as I can manage, said he. At last, the time came for him to say goodbye to his friends. "Farewell, Balin," he said, "and farewell, Dwalin, and farewell, Dori, Nori, Ori, Oin, Gloin, Bifur, Bofur, and Bombur. May your beards never grow thin." And turning toward the mountain, he added, "Farewell, Thorin, Oiking Shield, and Fili and Kili. May your memory never fade." Then the dwarf bowed low before their gate, but words stuck in their throats. "Goodbye and good luck, wherever you fare," said Balin at last. If ever you visit us again, when our halls are made fair once more, then the feast shall indeed be splendid. If ever you are passing my way," said Bilbo, "don't wait to knock. Tea is at 4, but any of you are welcome at any time." Then he turned away.
Thank you. Omar?
The elf host was on the march, and if it was sadly lessened, yet many were glad, for now the northern world would be merrier for many a long day. The dragon was dead, and the goblins overthrown, and their hearts looked forward after winter to a spring of joy. Gandalf and Bilbo rode behind the Elven King, and beside them strode Beorn, once again in man's shape, and he laughed and sang in a loud voice upon the road. So they went uh, on until they drew near to the borders of Mirkwood, to the north of the place where the forest river ran out. Then they halted, for the wizard and Bilbo would not enter the woods, even though the king bade them stay a while in his halls. They intended to go along the edge of the forest and round its northern end in the waste that lay between it and the beginning of the Great Mountains. It was a long and cheerless road, but now that the goblins were crushed, it seemed safer to them than the dreadful pathways under the trees. Moreover, Beorn was going that way too. Farewell, O Elven King, said Gandalf. Merry be the greenwood, while the world is yet young, and merry be all your folk. Farewell, O Gandalf, said the king. May you ever appear where you are most needed and least expected. The, of, the oftener you appear in my halls, the better shall I be pleased.
Thanks. Hector?
I beg of you, said Bilbo, stammering and standing on one foot, to accept this gift. And he brought out a necklace of silver and pearls that Time had given him at their parting. In what way have I earned such a gift, O Hobbit? Said the king. Well, I thought, don't you know, said Bilbo, rather confused, that some little return should be made for your hospitality. I mean, even a burgher has his feeling. I have drunk much of your wine and eaten much of your bread. I will take your gift, O Bilbo the Magnificent, said the king gravely, and I name you elf friend and bless. May your shadow never grow less, or stealing will be too easy. Farewell. Then the elf turned towards the forest, and Bilbo started on his long route home. He had many hardships and adventures before he got back. The wild was still the wild, and there were many other things in it in those days, besides goblins. But he was well guided and well guarded. The wizard was with him, and Beorn for much of the way, and he was never in great danger again. Anyway, by midwinter, Gandalf and Bilbo had come all the way back along both edges of the forest to the doors of Beorn's house, and there for a while they both stayed. Yuletide was warm and merry there, and men came from far and wide to feast at Beorn's bidding. The goblins of the misty mountains were now few and terrified, and hidden in the deepest holes they could find, and the wars had vanished from the woods, so that men went abroad without fear.
Thank you. Scott, would you finish this chapter, please? But you're muted. If you unmuted yourself, that will be...
Yeah, sorry. We're beginning at Beorn indeed?
Yes.
Okay. Beorn indeed became a great chief afterwards in those regions and ruled a wide land between the mountains and the wood. And it is said that for many generations the men of his line had the power of taking bear shape, and some were grim men and bad, but most were in heart like Beorn, if less in size and strength. In their day the last goblins were hunted from the misty mountains, and a new peace came over the edge of the wild. It was spring, and a fair one with mild weathers and a bright sun before Bilbo and Gandalf took their leave at last of Beorn. And though he longed for home, Bilbo left with regret, for the flowers of the gardens of Beorn were in springtime no less marvelous than in high summer. At last they came up the long road and reached the very pass where the goblins had captured them before. But they came to that high point at morning, and looking backward, they saw a white sun shining over the outstretched lands. There behind lay Mirkwood, blue in the distance, and darkly green at the nearer edge, even in the spring. There, far away, was the lonely mountain on the edge of eyesight. On its highest peak, snow yet unmelted was gleaming pale. So comes snow after fire, and even dragons have their ending, said Bilbo, and he turned his back on his adventure. The Tookish part was getting very tired, and the Baggins was daily getting stronger. I wish now only to be in my own armchair, he said.
Thank you. Krista, could you start chapter 19 and feel free to sing if you want.
You really don't want that. The last stage. The last stage. It was on May the 1st that the two came back at last to the brink of the valley of Rivendell, where stood the last, or the first, homely house. Again it was evening. Their ponies were tired, especially the one that carried the baggage, and they all felt in need of rest. As they rode down the steep path, Bilbo heard the elves still singing in the trees, as if they had not stopped since he left. And as soon as the riders came down into the lower glades of the wood, they burst into a song of much the same kind as before. This is something like it. The dragon is withered, his bones are now crumbled, his armor is shivered, his splendor is humbled. Though swords shall be rusted, and throne and crown perish, with strength that men trusted, and wealth that they cherish. Here grass is still growing, and leaves are yet swinging, the white water flowing, and elves are yet singing. Come, tra-la-la-lally, come back to the valley. The stars are far brighter than gems without measure. The moon is far whiter than silver and treasure. The fire is more shining on hearth than gloaming, than gold won by mining. So why go a roaming? Oh, tra-la-la-lally, come back to the valley. Oh, where are you going so late in returning? The river is flowing, the stars are all burning. Oh, whither so laden, so sad and so dreary? Here elf and elf maiden now welcome the weary. With tra-la-la-lally, come back to the valley. Tra-la-la-lally, fa-la-la-lally, fa-la. Then the elves of the... Oh, sorry.
Thanks. Chad.
I was following along in Spanish, so I wasn't paying attention. Here we go. Then the elves of the valley came out and greeted them and led them across the water to the house of Elrond. There a warm welcome was made them, and there were many eager ears that evening to hear the tale of their adventures. Gandalf it was who spoke, for Bilbo was fallen quiet and drowsy. Most of the tale he knew, for he had been in it, and had himself told much of it to the wizard on their homeward way, or in the house of Beorn. But every now and again he would open one eye and listen when a part of the story which he did not yet know, came in. It was in this way that he learned where Gandalf had been, too, for he overheard the words of the wizard to Elrond. It appeared that Gandalf had been to a great council of the White Wizards, masters of lore and good magic, and that they had at last driven the necromancer from his dark hold in the south of Mirkwood. Ere long now, Gandalf was saying, the forest will grow somewhat more wholesome. The north will be freed from that horror for many long years, I hope. Yet I wish he were banished from the world. It would be well indeed, said Elrond, but I fear that will not come about in this age of the world, or for many after. When the tale of their journeyings, you're done?
You're done. Okay. I know you want to sing, but we'll sing later. Fernando.
Okay.
You can sing.
The tale of their journeyings was told. There were other tales, and yet more tales, tales of long ago, and tales of new things, and tales of no time at all, till Bilbo's head fell forward on his chest, and he snored comfortably on a corner. He woke to find himself in a white bed, and the moon shining through the open window. Below it, many elves were singing loud and clear on the banks of the stream. Sing all ye joyful, now sing all together. The winds in the treetop, the winds in the heather, The stars have in blossom, the moon is in flower, and bring out the windows of the night in her tower. Dance all, ye joyful, now dance all together. Soft is the grass, and let foot be like feather. The river is silver, and the shadows are fleeting. Merry is May time, and the merries are meeting. See we now softly, and dreams let us waken. Win him in slumber, and there let us leave him. The thunder sleep, now soft be his pillow. Lullaby, lullaby, alder and willow. Sigh no more, pine, till with the wine of the morn, foul moon, dark be the lawn. Hush, hush, oak, ash, and thorn. Hush be all water, till down at his home.
Thank you. Well, merry people, said Bilbo, looking out. What time by the moon is this? Your lullaby would waken a drunken goblin. Yet I thank you. And your snores would waken a stone dragon. Yet we thank you, they answered with laughter. It is drawing towards dawn, sorry, and you have slept now since the night's beginning. Tomorrow, perhaps you will be cured of weariness. A little sleep does a great cure in the house of Elrond, had said he, but I will take all the cure I can get. A second good night, fair friends. And with that, he went back to bed and slept till late morning. Weariness fell from him soon in that house, and he had many a merry jest and dance, early and late, with the elves of the valley. Yet even that place could no long delay him now, and he thought always of his own home. After a week, therefore, he said farewell to Elrond, and giving him such small gifts as he would accept, he rode away with Gandalf. Santiago.
Even as they left the valley, the sky darkness in the west before them, and wind and rain came up to meet them. Merry is May time, said Bilbo, as the rain beat into his face. But our back is to legends, and we are coming home. I suppose this is the first taste of it. There is a long road yet, said Gandalf. But it is the last road, said Bilbo. They came to the river that marked the very edge of the borderland of the wild, and to the ford beneath the steep bank, which you may remember. The water was swollen both with the melting of the snows at the approach of summer and with a day-long rain, but they crossed it with some difficulty and pressed forward as evening fell on the last stage of their journey. This was much as it had been before, except that the company was smaller and more silent. Also, this time there were no trolls. At each point on the road, Bilbo recalled the happenings and the words of a year ago. It seems to him more like 10, so that, of course, he quickly noted that the place where the pony had fallen in the river, and they had turned aside for the nasty adventure with Tom and Bert and Bill.
Thanks, Santi. Omar?
Not far from the road, they found the gold of the trolls, which they had buried, still, still hidden and untouched. I have enough to last me my time, said Bilbo, when they had dug it up. You had better take this, Gandalf. I dare say you can find a use for it. Indeed, I can, said the wizard. But share and share alike. You might find and had more needs than you expect. So they put their gold in bags and slung them on the ponies, who were not at all pleased about it. After that, their going was slower, for most of the time they walked, but the land was green and there was much grass through which the hobbit strolled along contentedly. He mopped his face with a red silk handkerchief. No, not a single one of his own had survived. He had borrowed this one from Elrond. For now June had brought summer, and the weather was bright and hot again. As all things comes to an end, even this story, a day came at last when they were inside of the country where Bilbo had been born and breathed, where the shapes of the land and of the trees were as well known to him as his hands and toes. Coming to a rise, he could see his own hill in the distance, and he stopped suddenly and said,
Thank you. Hector?
Roads go ever on, over rock and under tree, by caves where never sun has shone, by streams that never find the sea, over snow by winter sown, and through the merry flowers of June, over grass and over stone, and under mountains in the moon. Roads go ever on, under cloud and under star, yet feet that wandered have gone, turn at last to come afar. Eyes that fire and sword have seen, and horror in the halls of stone. Look at glass on meadows green, and trees and hills they long have known. Gandalf looked at him. My dear Bilbo, he said, something is the matter with you. You are not the hobbit that you were. And so they crossed the bridge and passed the mill by the river, and came right back to Bilbo's own door. Bless me, what's going on? He cried. There was a great commotion, and people of all sorts, respectable and unrespectable, were thick around the door, and many were going in and out, not even wiping their feet on the mat, as Bilbo noticed with annoyance.
Thanks. Scott?
If he was surprised, they were more surprised still. He had arrived back in the middle of an auction. There's that phrase. There was a large notice in black and red hung on the gate, stating that on June the 22nd, Messrs. Grubb, and Burrows would sell by auction the effects of the late Bilbo Baggins, Esquire of Bag End, Underhill, Hobbiton. Sale to commence at 10 o'clock sharp. It was now nearly lunchtime, and most of the things had already been sold for various prices, from next to nothing to old songs, as is not unusual at auctions. Bilbo's cousins, the Sackville Bagginses, were in fact busy measuring his rooms to see if their own furniture would fit. In short, Bilbo was presumed dead, and not everybody that said so was sorry to find the presumption wrong. The return of Mr. Bilbo Baggins created quite a disturbance, both under the hill and over the hill and across the water. It was a great deal more than 9 days' wonder. The legal bother, indeed, lasted for years. It was quite a long time before Mr. Baggins was in fact admitted to be alive again. The people who had got specially good bargains at the sale took a deal of convincing, and in the end, to save time, Bilbo had to buy back quite a lot of his own furniture. Many of his silver spoons mysteriously disappeared and were never accounted for. Personally, he suspected the Sackville Bagginses. On their side, they never admitted that the returned Baggins was genuine, and they were not on friendly terms with Bilbo ever after. They really had wanted to live in his nice hobbit hole so very much.
Thank you. Krista?
Indeed, Bilbo found he had lost more than spoons. He had lost his reputation. It is true that forever after he remained an elf friend, and had the honor of dwarves, wizards, and all such folk as ever passed that way. But he was no longer quite respectable. He was in fact held by all the hobbits of the neighborhood to be queer, except by his nephews and nieces on the Took side, but even they were not encouraged in their friendship by their elders. I am sorry to say he did not mind. He was quite content, and the sound of the kettle on his hearth was ever after more musical than it had been even in the quiet days before the unexpected party. His sword he hung over the mantelpiece. His coat of mail was arranged on a stand in the hall until he lent it to a museum. His gold and silver was largely spent in presents, both useful and extravagant, which to a certain extent accounts for the affection of his nephews and his nieces. His magic ring he kept a great secret, for he chiefly used it when unpleasant callers came. He took to writing poetry and visiting the elves, and though many shook their heads and touched their foreheads and said, "Poor old Baggins," and though few believed any of his tales, he remained very happy to the end of his days, and those were extraordinarily long.
Thank you. Jeff?
Okay.
Where are we? Point me out on your version. Okay. One autumn evening, some years afterwards, Bilbo was sitting in his study writing his memoirs. He thought of calling them There and Back Again, A Hobbit's Holiday, when there was a ring at the door. It was Gandalf and a dwarf, and the dwarf was actually Balin. Come in, said Bilbo, and soon they were settled in chairs by the fire. If Balin noticed that Mr. Baggins's waistcoat was more extensive and had real gold buttons, Bilbo also noticed that Balin's beard was several inches longer, and his jeweled belt was of great magnificence. They fell to talking of their times together, of course, and Bilbo asked how things were going in the lands of the mountain. It seemed they were going very well. Bard had rebuilt the town in Dale, and men had gathered to him from the lake and from south and west, and all the valley had become tilled again and rich, and the desolation was now filled with birds and blossoms in spring, and fruit and feasting in autumn. And Lake Town was refounded and was more prosperous than ever, and much wealth went up and down the running river, and there was friendship in those parts between elves and dwarves and men.
Thank you. Fernando, would you finish?
Sure. The old master had come to a bad end. Bard had given him much gold for the help of the lake people, but being one of the kind that easily catches such a disease, he fell under the dragon sickness, and took most of the gold and fled with it, and died of starvation in the waste deserted by his companions. The new master is of wizard kind, said Balin, and very popular, for, of course, he gets most of the credits of the present prosperity. They are making songs which say that in his day the rivers run with gold. Then the prophecies of the old songs have returned out to be true after a fashion, said Bilbo. Of course, said Gandalf. And why should not they prove true? Surely you don't disbelieve the prophecies, because you had a hand in bringing them about yourself. You don't really suppose, do you, that all your adventures and escapes were managed by mere luck, just for your sole benefit? You're a very fine person, Mr. Baggins, and I am very fond of you. But you are only quite a little fellow in the white war after all. Thank goodness, said Bilbo, laughing, and handed him that tobacco jar.
And I don't know why it doesn't say the end. I'm like, what's next? What's next? No, that's the end. Okay, let's take a picture before I forget. Let me stop sharing. Okay, already. Per, you gonna appear? Anaiko, Anayako, Santiago. I mean Santiago. Somebody else? Wait. I need a full screen. Okay, I'm ready. Say Hobbit. When I say Hobbit, you say Hobbit. Hobbit, you are all muted.
Hobbitses.
Hobbitses. Thank you.